Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Well Workplaces podcast. I'm here again with Dr. Natalie Flatt. Natalie, how are you?
I'm okay, Tom, today. It's a hot one here, though. It's nice.
It sure is. Last night in Melbourne, there was these massive like a big hailstorm out where we were. I'm sure it got you as well. Was that nuts or what?
Yes, and we had the kids' Christmas carols outside last night as well, and they literally had it 15 minutes before they were going to call it off, and then they let it go, and we were very lucky to get into that window of opportunity, so it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, it's kind of that time of year where everyone's looking ahead towards the finish line, I guess, for Christmas and this year. And I guess my little reflection on this year, like what we were just saying before, I guess off air, was that it probably hasn't met anyone's expectations this year. I remember talking with you last year and we were talking about how 2021, that's the year for us and all this. And it's literally been like a clone of the year before. So the topic for today is really around I guess looking at mindset and language to create positive behavior change. And I think kind of at this time of year, one thing I tend to find is I get quite fatigued and I know I need a break, but I also kind of have a bit of time to think about my mindset going into the new year, because I kind of think of it as a fresh start. So what do you have anything to say on that, Nat?
Yes, you're so right, Tom, because we do fall in more so that fixed mindset by the end of the year because we're just tired, and we're like a lot of us are saying, and granted it's also, I think it's pretty normal that we're saying a lot of things like, I just can't do it today, or I just give up, or I'm just done. But, we can accept that kind of language now because of, what we've been dealing with over the last 2 years. But we really, fingers crossed, everything is going to be a 2022 where we are saying that's going to be really successful. And we just want to be mindful of that mindset moving forward, that we still do have that opportunity to shift, to say, okay, although I feel right now that I can't give much more, in 2022, this is how I can. So it's a little bit of, talking today about how we can then just watch that, be aware of that, identify that, and use out language that, and talking out loud essentially, to be able to create this growth mindset pattern to lead us to success and positive behavior change.
Yeah, I love it. There was one little quote that I put in the episode or the notes for this, which was, if you can change your mind, you can change your life. And old mate William James, who is probably, that was hundreds of years ago. He was the father of American psychology, the developer of the philosophical school of pragmatism. So I feel like that quote there is kind of, I'm sure you've heard of similar quotes, but saying the same thing but in a different way. But it sort of like makes me think about mindset straight away, and also just how I'm quite interested in how that practically that works, and how, I guess high performance individuals or professionals in like really elite sports as well, how they get themselves in that really great growth mindset, because there's a big difference between me saying how fatigued I am at the end of the year towards, needing to be more in a growth mindset. Maybe a good place to start, and that is just going into what is a growth mindset, or what does it mean, for you?
Yeah, no, it is. And a growth mindset is that belief that a person can develop the skills and abilities through practice, and then also that perseverance. So that's between studying, or we were talking about before with running, setting goals, some really hard work, and also being able to accept that as constructive feedback rather than as criticism. And what that does is that belief system, it then can spark the desire to grow. So it really creates that level of intrinsic motivation, and drives then our motivation to produce results. So for those that we ever believed that we could never do something, or we were always told that we could never do that, don't ever take no for an answer. It's one of those kind of sayings there, that you can do anything that you put your mind to, and that's the power of the growth mindset there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. With some of, I guess, growth mindset, something no doubt that you're talking about a lot lately or over the last year, and kind of trying to cultivate that in individuals or in workplaces. I'm wondering if you have any like kind of great examples of growth mindset for maybe clients, or maybe some common themes that you're seeing with people that you might know?
Yeah, yeah, and look, it's a good point because, growth mindset, it's like a muscle, isn't it? And we
Mm,
wanna be able to practice this, and as I said many times, wellness is our greatest resource, but it's also a very big discipline, and growth mindset is also something like that, especially when we can have those automatic negative thinking all the time, which can more often than not lead to that fixed mindset where we essentially have a ceiling effect on our abilities, because of how we use our language. So if we can then start to identify when we are in that that fixed mindset place, and being able to then reverse that language or challenge that language. So rather than saying I can't do this, rather than saying what other ways can I look at this problem? So it's changing that, maybe even into a question. I think we've got a really cool infographic if you even bring that up, Tom, that
mm.
really does like just highlight that, how we can then, create challenges as opportunities, rather than think that that's the end, right? So, if even like a basketball player, as you're saying with sports and basketball before, if they were trying to like go for that hoops, oh, I'm too short, I'm never going to get that goal. Well, more often than not, if you're going to be saying that to yourself, that you won't, rather than saying, okay, how can I look at this another way? If I, ducked under, weaved up, practice that over and over and over again, even if I make those mistakes, eventually I will get it. And we say a lot, we do a lot of growth mindset. Carol Dweck was the beautiful psychologist that really brought growth mindset to the forefront. We do it a lot with children, so we really want to start to create that so much work within the child's space. But it's just as important, to develop that growth mindset with kids, which is really the foundation of their emotional intelligence, which we already know that is going to lead and drive success greater than IQ now. We still want to incorporate this within the workplace setting. Many jobs can be challenging. Many jobs also change rapidly. And we want to be able to have that brain that's quite malleable to say, you know what, I don't actually know how to do this right now, or I don't know the best way, but I'm willing to give it a go. And if I make mistakes, that's okay, because I now know, and if I make that mistake, that I can do it another way. It's like a math sum, isn't it? There's not always one way. There's many ways to get the answer, and we just have to be open to that suggestion, of learning and of making mistakes, and of taking away that level of humiliation, and also embarrassment. And that's part of that whole empathy piece as well within companies, to say, hey guys, it's okay to make mistakes, because if we make mistakes, sometimes those mistakes can actually lead to amazing solutions, because we wouldn't have looked at it in that way if we didn't make that mistake in the first place. So, if we can encourage that growth mindset by saying, how is, Jane, is so disciplined, rather than saying, I wish I was like Jane, or I'll never be like Jane, what can I take out of Jane's day to then incorporate into my day to get me one step closer to being disciplined like Jane? Is that, or can I ask Jane, oh, Jane gets up at 5 a.m. and meditates before she comes to work, and that balances her. Maybe I might try that too. So it's literally taking other people and what they've done, and looking at, their achievements, but also then taking in consideration that they have made a lot of mistakes on the way themselves, that no one's perfect. It's really breaking down that stigma, and that pressure also, within a person, to allow that space to say, hey, there will be failures, and that is okay. But I can pick myself up, I can dust myself off, and I can try again. And that's that perseverance piece. That's what leads to a growth mindset there.
Yeah, I love it. And I think I really like what you were saying about kids, and just that early development side of things. Of my daughter the other day, I can't remember what it was about specifically, but she just kept saying, I can't do it. And so for me, I guess I was taking it. She's 5, so it's like she's not a baby, then just about to start school. So I'm just sort of thinking, what are the best ways to coach that thinking, and it really just led to me asking her more questions, and trying to put a more of a I feel like she's maybe got some perfectionist tendencies, in the way she goes about it. So it's kind of, it's a really important point, isn't it, of just those early learning years and that early start. And also, I guess, with growth mindset, it's always something, as you were saying before, it's like a muscle. You can improve yourself as you get older. And I think in the workplace setting as well, or how we've all been working in different ways, we've really had to have a growth mindset to be able to just adapt and move fast through these strange couple of years that we've had. If you think back, Nat, to like our very first, say, podcast that we did together, which would be a year and a half ago, probably. My approach to that would have been very amateur, and I'm still no good at it, but I'm still showing up and having a crack, right? So
Exactly.
yeah. And there's a great little quote that is just in the bottom here, that this is one that you actually plucked.
I love it.
Do you want to read that one out just for the audio?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it because I can't
yeah.
see it now.
Oh,
Don't compare yourself. Don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle, or your middle to someone else's end. And that's by Tim Hiller. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because we get so caught up, especially within society, that we have to continually compare ourselves. Look, we all know that, the biggest culprit there is the whole social media piece. But everyone's at a different starting point, and it's not a race. So, that although we want to, rather than say we're going to compare ourselves to someone, well, we want to say, well, who's aspirational? Okay. And why are they aspirational to me? And what is it about them that I can now, take some of their pieces of advice, or some of their abilities, or their activities, and incorporate that into my day. And what that's going to break down is that jealousy and that resentment as well. And again, build your belief system. But we just can't compare ourselves to everyone. We don't know where everyone started. We don't know where everyone's come from.
Yeah, it's a shit place to start, isn't it? If you're just sort of worrying about what other people are doing. And sometimes in business settings, people compare to competitors, and that's just also a bad way to go mentally, because you start doubting, what you're doing and what you're about. So as you say, sort of that belief system side of things is really important. I'm wondering now, Nat, if we can talk about language, and I'd imagine positive reinforcement, or changing the way that you talk to yourself, or self-talk, can be quite helpful from a neurological level and a brain sort of pattern recognition, perhaps. How does it really help us change our behavior, the language, like in a more scientific way?
And it's a really funny thing, because I was doing it this morning, going, okay, if I just get I'll pack the kids' lunches, and then I'll put them in the school bag, and then I'll remember to pack my laptop. And I'm kind of what I figured I was doing today, which was classic me anyway, but getting through the morning, was speaking out loud, right? And speaking out loud to actually do the work. And get things into the lunches, the school bags, make sure that everything's packed, and really doing a bit of a mental tick off, right? But what research has actually shown, that's a poor example, but that's just me being the busy mum, and I don't like between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. Probably not my best character either at that time. But when we can talk out loud to ourselves, what it does, it allows us to motivate us and move us forward into our goals. And it helps you focus on that task at hand. It also then allows you to combat and have the ability to combat that level of self-criticism. So this phenomenon is actually called a feedback hypothesis. So really talking through whatever you may be going through or doing can help you become intentional about that activity, and also keep up and maintain that motivation to be able to complete the task. So this is, this is what psychologists have actually dubbed selective attention. And it pretty much means exactly that, just choosing to focus on one thing at a time. So, poor example, but me just going, okay, I've just got to remember to get the lunch boxes in the bag. Now, if I didn't say that, I know that I've also got 500,000 other things that I try and do in the morning before I get out to come to work. And sometimes if I notice, I know a very big difference when I say things out loud to the task actually getting completed, to if I just kept it in my mind. So what if we could then just start to talk out loud to ourselves Doesn't have to be, screaming from the rooftops, but to be able to give us a little bit of a pep up to be able to start to encourage that style of growth mindset to lead to that positive behavior change. And we found that a lot of research is done. Again, I don't know, basketball must be on our minds, Tom, but they've done this with basketball players where they're saying is like, if I just bounce this ball, okay, I'm going to go around this person, I'm going to and go for a goal. And if they're actually saying this out loud, they're actually more likely to succeed. So it was actually quite interesting about that phenomenon there. But, there's also a lot of work, British psychologist Colin Sherry, he explored the impact of that selective attention by asking participants to state facts out loud. What that research showed is they were able to better retain that information compared to the participants that didn't speak it out loud. So these words, or this verbalization of words, actually have a lot of power around that. And that's where and it's because we're becoming a lot more aware of what's going on in our mind, and engaging in this process. It actually allows the access, or it allows access to the brain's language center, and it allows us to then become more intentional. It's a great way, obviously, to become self-aware, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And your example of the that morning rush hour with kids and lunchboxes, just how annoying is that, firstly, or how crazy
Oh,
is that time? It's literally like a step-by-step process to get
yeah.
out the door. And
Yes.
I'm with you on speaking out loud. I like basically do a bit of mini handover to my wife. So I'm like, okay, so we've got this in this bag, and this is so it's all out loud. She probably thinks I'm nuts for doing it, but I'm like, if I don't talk about it, I will get distracted by
Get distracted.
something. Yeah. So it's really nice for kind of creating that intent, and also just getting the thing done.
Yes.
I've got a question there, Nat, on just around like negativity bias, I guess, which is something that I've come across, which is kind of that idea that most of the time, in our heads anyway, if there's a bunch of things going on, we'll pick out, or our bias will be towards the negative side of things. Does that fit in here? Or so the self-talking part, is that to sort of, if our inner voice is kind of not negative, but like kind of hypercritical of all the things
Yeah.
we're doing? So in the example of the lunchbox, it might be, oh, go and do this, Nat, go and do this. Or like you've probably got in your head all the things you're doing for the day. What do you think about that?
Yeah, like it's an interesting one, like because language is so powerful, and I think there's elements of that the word, like when we've got conscious language and then we've got unconscious language, is that when the unconscious language will only hear positive words, like we'll only actually be able to decipher the positive words. So if we're going to be consciously saying something that is in, like even using double negatives, what the unconscious will actually then say is focus on that. So, I don't want to think of, my ex-boss anymore. You basically, what ends up happening is that you think about the ex-boss. Like it's like that whole, don't think of the pink elephant in the room, don't think of the pink elephant in the room. And then everyone just, as soon as you say it, people get that image. And what that actually plays on is, because you've used that negative words, it your unconscious brain will kind of tell you to do the exact opposite. So it is very important to be able to take note of what kind of languages that you're using, and try and actually use positive language, because when you use that from a conscious perspective, then your unconscious is actually going to do what your conscious wants you to do in the first place. So instead of, I'll just make it easy for a diet, I want to lose weight, so I won't eat. Well, the brain hears, I will eat. So, and I'm hungry. So the unconscious part, rather than saying that I will exercise every day and I will eat healthy, well, now that's actually deciphering the right way. So we want to be able just to have these statements, dare I say, around growth mindset that's positive. So both our conscious and our unconscious is on the same page to deliver that appropriate behavior change.
That's a great example, by the way, on the dieting front. I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of people can kind of relate to that one. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
If people are kind of listening and they're going, do I get started here? Or, how could I just work on this particular skill of, creating more positive language and intent? What are the steps, or how would you go? What would your
Yeah.
advice be at a simple level?
Look, at a simple level, we want to start somewhere, and sometimes just setting some clear goals, like, really sitting back, having a bit of reflection, like, what do you, what do you want to achieve? Like, what would you like to change, or what would you even like to build upon, like a skill set here. And this is, that self reflection piece is really essential to learning. And because it lets you ask those questions, it allows you to think deeply about what you want and your processes, and also reevaluate those strategies there. And it really uncovers, I suppose, the lessons that we can all learn retrospectively, can't we? And that's going to be able to lead to new positive insights. So it's always good just for that reflection there. And once you've got that reflection, say, okay, I know what I really want. It's all about then setting those goals and using, there's, I suppose, SMART goals can be very easy for a lot of people to utilize. But I always say, again, let's start small. Let's not bite off, more than we can chew. If we like, some things about Jane and her discipline, and, like her level of ambitiousness, and you wanted a bit of a slice of that. Well, again, take Jane out for a coffee, find out, maybe what she does, and then think about, well, what's going to be an easy step for me to start that process? Is it getting up at 5 a.m.? How is that going to look like? How can I incorporate that in my SMART goals to be able to lead success? And then habit stack that. Then take the next habit once that's kind of more solidified, then take it to the next thing. Don't think that you need to do all this at once. Again, don't compare yourself to people. You're always going to make mistakes, and accept that. We need to persist through that. And you need to say, this is okay. Just like what we say to the kids as well, Tom. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. If we didn't learn, we wouldn't even need to go to school. And especially my 6-year-old as well is very, very, very impatient, always tries to keep up with my 8-year-old. But he, he accepts that now, that it's okay to make mistakes. Then I'll make a mistake and I'll go, see, I've made one too. I don't care. I'll just keep on trying. I'll do it another way. So I'm just trying to also model that behavior. It's unavoidable, isn't it? It is completely, and failure is unavoidable. But when you do fail, get up again. That's not just a matter of resilience. It's about, the persistence there. It's that's what we really want to be able to show. And we want to also, model that for other people as well, that it is okay to make mistakes. I'm human, but this is how I'm looking at it from a different perspective. So it's a great leadership quality too. Also then, again, learning from other people's mistakes, that, again, accept that successful people have persevered through mistakes as well. Like, they're not just perfect. They haven't just rolled out and, able to run a marathon, from, just putting a first pair of runners on. Like, it's having that ability where they've really had to work that out themselves. So again, going and asking, sitting them down, picking their brain, like getting some ideas and some strategies, even about how they started. That's really important there. But I really do love what you said before, that self-critical piece, because once we start to become self-critical, we will fall back into that fixed mindset. And we want to be really careful about that. The easiest way is a great question that you might even want to, write somewhere in your diary, on your fridge, but it will snap you back into getting back on track. And it is, what would you say to comfort and guide a friend who is going through the same thing? Or how would I talk to my friend in that way? And why not? And how would I talk to my friend if she was coming or he was coming to, with a problem,
Yeah.
So that kind of, it always is a bit of an eye opener to say, well, if I wouldn't talk to my best friend like that, why am I talking to myself like that?
Yeah, it's a bloody good question, isn't it? It would really get you thinking in that moment, I'd imagine. I really love your tip there on take, like, if you see people around you that inspire you, find ways to connect with them and pick their brains. I really love that, because when I think with, I guess, growth mindset, people maybe go automatically, they start, idolizing celebrities or people that they might see that are, almost famous. But there's some really ordinary, brilliant people out there that are great at what they do, and they might even be your work colleagues. and they might just have a little bit of something that you need or you want in your life, and really picking the brains, and even that idea of a coffee, because we have lost a lot of social connection. It's kind of a nice one to you're not then comparing or competing. You're just going, I'd love a little bit of that. I feel like that's something that I've personally done a lot of over my time, is just sort of going, oh, I don't like all of that. I just like a little bit of that. Let's see how you do that. And that can lead to just some slight lifestyle changes or modifications that then work in your favor, because then you become the person that you kind of want to become, because you're inspired by a bunch of people that you like.
And also, it's the biggest compliment, isn't it, for the reciprocated person? So they're pretty much always going to be able to be there to help you or mentor you in that way. But as our, at Connect Psych, as our little motto is, it all starts with one conversation, and that's all about positive change. Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Nat, thanks so much for today. Really great episode, and really cool, healthy discussion there. Looking forward to chatting more next week or next time we get on. But yeah, thanks again.
Exciting. I'll see you next week, Tom. Take care, everyone.
All right. See ya. Bye.
See ya. Bye.